Hello, I'm Dr. Lipi, and welcome to my show, Health, Humor, and Harmony. I think most of you know by now that I'm a huge fan of movies, television, and music. As a die-hard, loyal fan, I get really sad whenever one of my favorite artists dies from drugs or alcohol. From actors like Heath Ledger, The Wire's Michael K. Williams, actress Brittany Murphy, and Glee's Cory Monteith, to musicians like Prince, Whitney Houston, Amy Winehouse, Tom Petty, Soundgarden's Cornell, and most recently, Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins. Most of you also know that I'm a doctor who specializes in addiction medicine. So, today's episode will be dedicated to 4 common myths about celebrities who get addicted to drugs and alcohol. Let's get started. Many years ago, before I was formally trained in substance use disorders, or SUD, if I heard about a famous person dying from drugs or alcohol, I would roll my eyes and say, yeah, not surprising, or yeah, saw that coming, or it figures. Do you react that way too? Well, now that I know what I know about the brain biology of addiction, the environmental influence, and the stigma, I no longer react in such a presumptuous or judgmental way. Here are just 4 myths about celebrities and drugs. Myth number 1, all celebrities have a drug or alcohol problem. It may seem that way, as if yet another famous actor or athlete is getting arrested for drug use or going to rehab. But the reality is that we tend to hear about it because they're famous. My patients who have an SUD aren't featured on TMZ or Access Hollywood because paparazzi doesn't follow them around. According to the National Institutes of Health, or NIH, about 10% of the general population has an addiction at some point in their lives. But a SAMHSA report revealed that people in the entertainment industry experience higher rates of addiction compared to the general population. For example, nearly 13% reported a drug or alcohol dependence compared to 9.5% in other industries. Now, note, this study included all members of entertainment, crew, writers, producers, etc., so not just the talent. Still, it's far from 100% of celebrities. Myth number 2, addiction isn't a real problem. Celebs just want attention. Make no mistake, addiction is a chronic disease of the brain that causes compulsive drug seeking and use, despite harm to the person using and to those around him or her. It is not a sign of moral weakness or failure. And let's be clear, the vast majority of people who use drugs and alcohol do so recreationally and will never develop an addiction. But if and when a person does, that substance can control and even destroy his or her life. Justin Bieber's life spiraled out of control. Look at this quote that he said, "My security would come into my room at night to check my pulse. People don't know how serious it got. I was waking up in the morning and the first thing I was doing was popping pills and smoking a blunt. It just got scary." Not only is addiction a legitimate health problem, it's getting worse. A 2016 study showed that the rate of drug-related celebrity deaths has nearly doubled in the 21st century. Half were in entertainment, 15% were athletes. This is consistent among the rest of society. The CDC reported that drug overdose deaths have quadrupled since 1999 in the United States. Myth number 3, you have to hit rock bottom before you can get help. You hear this time and time again among so many people with addiction. My own patients have said to me, Doc, I lost everything. My job, my wife, my kids. I hit rock bottom, and so I then decided to get help. Oscar nominee Bradley Cooper says he hit rock bottom before getting help and achieving recovery from alcohol at age 29. This idea of waiting till you hit rock bottom before seeking help is a major myth when it comes to addiction. We don't do this for any other chronic health condition. We don't wait for everyone to have a near fatal heart attack before we start them on blood pressure or cholesterol lowering medications. Waiting to hit rock bottom implies that the person using and those around him or her are powerless. And it implies that treatment isn't available until a person has lost everything. Not true. Waiting until one's disease of addiction is so severe is harmful because it delays much needed treatment and early intervention. Myth number 4. Celebrities are so rich and famous, they don't have real problems like real people. I'll be honest, I used to think this way too. When you see headlines like Tom Cruise making over $100 million, Joaquin Phoenix nabs $20 million for Joker 2, Dwayne Johnson salary tops $22 million, it's hard to feel sorry for them. Or NFLer Russell Wilson's $245 million contract. And he's married to a gorgeous and famous singer, Ciara, and has adorable kids. Perfect life, right? What's that expression? The grass is always greener on the other side? Sure, these high-paid actors and athletes may not struggle to pay the rent, or their electric bills, or their kids' tuition. But they have a whole slew of other challenges that everyday folks don't face. Remember what Biggie sang about. Mo money, mo problems. It's also important to remember that very few actors, musicians, and athletes earn these extraordinary salaries. The vast majority are either unemployed, they're scraping by, they're waiting for their next gig, they're playing in the minors, if they're playing at all, and these issues themselves can lead to anxiety, isolation, depression, feelings of low self-worth, which in turn are risk factors for substance use and addiction. With money and fame come high expectations. Athletes need to perform. Movies that flop or TV shows with poor ratings can jeopardize an actor's career. Female actors and musicians face the double standard of meeting unrealistic beauty standards. Gwen Stefani said that she's been on a diet since grade 6 because of the pressure to stay thin. Good news, however, is that many stars are pushing back, like Jamila Jamil of The Good Place. She started the I Weigh campaign in response to a post of the Kardashian women with their physical weights.
And it was their weight. And whatever you might think, whatever I might think about the Kardashians, these are 6 women who've built an empire, and they are businesswomen alongside everything else that they are. It is so insane that in 2018, we are still writing down their weight on across every single woman's body. And then the comment underneath this post, which is followed by 500,000 people at least, all of whom are young girls, was, this is how much they weigh. Who do you think looks like they weigh the least? What do you weigh? And there were thousands of comments from young girls being like, oh no, I'm the same height as them, but I weigh this much. Oh no, I'm too fat, I'm awful. All these comments of constant self-hatred. And then because of the algorithms of Instagram, the more once I'd clicked on that, more of those sort of posts started to come up on my feed constantly. And then weight loss posts, and then more and more things that were just clearly describing a woman's entire worth centered around her weight. So I decided to write what I weigh on Instagram, which is the fact that I am financially independent, my wonderful relationship, my incredible friends, the job that I have, the fact that I get to laugh every day, and alongside a lot of the things that aren't perfect about my life. All these things make up who I am. That is how we define men. That has now got to be how we define women.
Another key point. The earlier you get money and fame, the harder it is to deal with. Drew Barrymore, who reached global stardom as the star of E.T. at age 6, started drinking alcohol at age 9, moved on to cocaine and cannabis, then entered rehab at age 13. When you're young, especially under 16, your brain is still developing. It still hasn't formed critical neural connections to deal with stress, anger, isolation. Drugs like alcohol and opioids further impair a teenager's ability to use sound judgment, to make decisions, to deal with anxiety and other negative emotions. In other words, to cope in a healthy way. Studies show that the earlier a person uses drugs, the higher their risk of developing an addiction. A final point I'll make is that celebrities are under tremendous pressure to perform, even if they're exhausted or sick, because many are also employers. Many people depend on artists and athletes to bring in money for their own livelihood. Think of tour managers, agents, audio or tech crew, hair and makeup artists, social media managers, and the list goes on. And the last point I'll make is about addiction itself. The sad reality is that people with drug and alcohol addiction are highly stigmatized. As I mentioned during my last episode about John Oliver, opioids and harm reduction, people with addiction are judged and shamed. Now imagine if you're a rock star or movie star with global attention and media scrutiny, who's numbing their exhaustion or migraines or performance anxiety with vodka or heroin. The average fan doesn't really understand that, and paparazzi exploit that. Celebrities are people too, and when needed, they will ease their pain and suffering with drugs and alcohol, just like the rest of us. I hope you found this show helpful. There are so many other celebrities I could have discussed in greater detail, as well as specific types of addictions that don't involve drugs, such as gambling, social media, food, caffeine, sex, work, pornography, etc. Please share your questions, comments, and ideas for future episodes. So how can you get involved? You can learn more about addiction and harm reduction, donate to or volunteer with trusted sources like the American Society of Addiction Medicine, or ASAM, the American Association of Addiction Psychiatry, National Institute on Drug Abuse, or NIDA, the Partnership to End Addiction, Shatterproof, SAMHSA, the Global Commission on Drug Policy, Harm Reduction International, the Drug Policy Alliance, and many more. Well, folks, that's all for today. And here's your joke of the day, movie theme. Why did James Bond have gray hair? Because he had no time to die. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, write comments below, and follow me on Instagram at Health Humor Harmony Dr. Roy. Be well. I'll see you soon.